Hi there guys, Vino here and welcome to this Vino Plunk production and welcome to my review of, as you can see on the screen behind me, Apocalypse Now. So me and my dad have just done a laptop swap, and as part of that laptop swap I've been testing out a bunch of Blu-rays and all sorts of things on the laptop that my dad swapped with me. And one of the Blu-rays I decided to test was Apocalypse Now, because while bored at work the other day on my break, I decided to watch randomly the trailer for Apocalypse Now. It was the trailer for this very release, actually the Blu-ray release of Apocalypse Now, and it looked spectacular. He made it look spectacular, makes it on a smaller screen and that kind of stuff. But anyway, and I thought to myself, I'm going to maybe watch that at some point. And I don't know whether it was a subconscious thing or what have you, but I decided to take this and use this as one of the test Blu-rays for the laptop. I watched about half an hour of it, then had to take care of something, and then came back to it after half an hour. Sorry, after what I had to take care of after watching that first half an hour. And how can you describe a film like Apocalypse Now? As you can see from this setup, I'm trying something a little different with the approach to this video, because like Apocalypse Now, I wanted to try something different to encapsulate what Apocalypse Now exactly is, and by having it there in the background and having the sounds, though you may not be able to hear them, and having the scenes play out in the background there, maybe in some ways that can, you know, combined with what I'm trying to say, give some sort of indication of what this film exactly is. So the film, I say obviously, but it's directed by Francis Ford Coppola and stars Marlon Brando, Robert Duvall, Martin Sheen, Lawrence Fishburne, Dennis Hopper and Harrison Ford, among other people. And I know how credits on films work, but I don't think Marlon Brando's name should be there. Basically, I think that should be Martin Sheen's name, if I'm being honest. So Apocalypse Now is billed as an epic psychological war film, and the psychological part is something I will focus in on in a minute, but the war part sells the film kind of short and misleads audiences in some way to what the film actually is. The film, simply put, is a horror film. Francis Ford Coppola uses many methods throughout the film to encapsulate horror themes. The music, the images, the imagery, everything that in the film that is used for the user to experience, the viewer to experience something specific, is all done with the intention of depicting horror. Not all of it, obviously. There are parts of the film that are supposed to depict elation or supposed to depict different kinds of things. But primarily, I would say the film is either a horror film or it's a trip, a drug trip, a mental trip, whatever it may be. I think the film has many layers of interpretation. This is obviously my interpretation, and I literally, before doing this video, had to watch snippets of a few reviews just to get my own thoughts into some sort of cohesive sense, because the film's not cohesive, okay? Yes, there's a through line through the film, but the film's not cohesive, and it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be one cohesive A to B kind of thing. Yes, you've got the metaphor with the river and the boat and the river, sorry, and that kind of stuff, but just the imagery and the way the film is so disparate and kind of patched together is deliberate. It's meant to make you feel uncomfortable, unhinged. It's meant to make you feel like you don't belong where this film is taking you. And this film is based upon a book called The Heart of Darkness. And I think, or Hearts of Darkness, I think. And I think in a lot of ways, this film does explore some aspects of both the human psyche, the human heart. It is a very philosophical film in a lot of ways. And it's funny that, of course, Francis Ford Coppola directed this, because he did then go on to be involved in the Jeepers Creepers series. In fact, he was heavily involved in the first two films, I do believe. And he probably took a lot of cues from this to make an actual horror film, so to speak. You probably gather from the way I'm speaking, it's hard to really describe Apocalypse Now. It's an experience. I wouldn't call it a film. Sometimes there are films that transcend the media they are played on. And Apocalypse Now is one of those films. It leaves you with a feeling, a thought, it leaves you with something that you're not quite sure what it is, and it takes time to really compartmentalize and work out what is the film meant, the context, the subtext. And I think at the end of the day, as one of the reviewers I watched said, the film's not meant to make sense. The film's not meant to make complete and utter sense. It's supposed to be ambiguous. It's supposed to be left up to your interpretation. The film depicts the horror of war and the Vietnamese War in very stark colour and contrast. It depicts the tragedies involved with war, but it also depicts the human psyche and how the human psyche can be, how it's unravelled, again, because of the wars in which it takes part in. As you progress through the film, this is kind of a spoiler, but not too much. You've got Martin Sheen, who plays the main, Captain Willard, plays the main character. But he has a team of people with him that come and go, a revolving door of people. And as the film goes on, they all become different kinds of unhinged. From going crazy, from being in a war zone, to being disconnected because they're in a war zone. Or, in Martin Sheen's case, being so set on your goal, your mission at hand, you kind of shrink within inside yourself and just, you only think of the mission at hand. It also depicts the atrocities of war in a lot of ways, and the innocent lives that are lost as the result of, I think there was a saying in is it Dances with Wolves? Well, one of the Indians say, white man take red man's wife and children because white man wants red man's land, or something along those lines. And it just depicts, it just shows that despite, government agents and those people are pushing the buttons and giving the orders, it's innocent lives that are on there in the thick of it, losing their lives to something that's not in their control. The film is, a lot of people call it a masterpiece. I'm not at the point yet where I'm going to say it's a masterpiece, but it's an experience. It is one hell of an experience that I think any film fan worth their salt needs to watch. It's one of those films that I will now regularly go to and talk about when I say, if you want a different experience when you watch a film, watch Apocalypse Now. If you want a, A to B straightforward kind of film, this is not your film. If you want a film that's nice and cohesive, this is not your film. However, if you want a film steeped in metaphors and idioms and that questions and challenges the human psyche and what it means to go to war and stuff like that, that's your film. I still think if you're a film fan that you should definitely check out the film. Did I enjoy the film? I don't know. At parts, no. At parts, I was very uncomfortable. But that's deliberate. I know from watching horror films and watching films that you're not supposed to feel comfortable watching that particular scene, but then they give you a different scene that gives you levity. This film doesn't give you much levity after a certain point. No, I didn't enjoy watching parts of the film because you're not supposed to with the soundtrack, the score, and the way the characters act in certain scenes. It's supposed to feel unnatural, uncomfortable. However, it was an experience that I felt I had to undertake once I undertook it. I suppose I'm kind of saying it's, I suppose, kind of spiritual in some ways. Not that I'm necessarily a religious person myself. It's just that it goes past it just being a film. It's in some ways more than a film, but we don't have a word to describe what it could be. Francis Ford Coppola outdid himself with this film. Of course, having directed The Godfather 1 and 2 before this, and then goes on to direct this, it's a far cry from The Godfather. The Godfather has a very deliberate story. This, and of course, is based on historical fact. This is also based on somewhat historical fact, but takes a completely different approach with it. And it's left me with all sorts of feelings. Some of them not so good, some of them good. I felt that although I'm being quite disparate in my description, I understood the film in a lot of ways. There are times where the film or the characters do describe what's just gone on in the film, which I piece together quite quickly. Like pieces like Marlon Brando's character that I'm not necessarily going to spoil in this review. There are little things that I kind of piece together about various characters throughout the film without the film having to directly tell me. And I think in some ways that will tailor your enjoyment of the film, how much you really enjoy it, as if you understand parts of the film, because it's open to interpretation. It's open to disambiguation. It's open to a lot of things, to be honest. Much like my review of Apocalypse Now, it's kind of a disparate film. Obviously, I can't finish this video without saying that there are many problems with this. From weather, severe weather almost destroying most of these sets, to Martin Sheen almost dying from a heart attack, to Marlon Brando himself suffering a lot of mental and emotional breakdowns. Still, he managed to put up one hell of a film. Until next time, guys, please take care. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day. Ta-ra.